Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm part 99. Today we'll be continuing on directly off of our last episode, three major results. We discussed one in economics, two in linguistics. I didn't even say, but the big green thing, a delta is to a lambda what a lambda is to a xi. That is the final kind of like analogy form or kind of bridging, but that gets into what we're discussing today. Yesterday, we also previously introduced the dynamic limit and provided some insights and results from that mathematical object and how it applies to linguistics. Today, we'll be showing that again linguistically, more poignantly, and how we can extend that to the entirety of, again, the iteration function, how language formalizes into words, sentences, logical points. And again, just ultimately looking for our axiomatic definition of sensorality. So we finished last time with sensorality, defining sensorality as a word, and then showing logical substitution. A letter is to a word what a word is to a sentence, clearly showing building, right? A letter constructs in a group of letters becomes a group of words becomes a sentence. And so then we said a letter is to sensorality what sensorality is to a sentence, and so trying to reduce that form. Again, these fundamental definitions will change, but I'm showing you each step because it is showing the logical consistency. There's a lot of steps. I mean, there's a lot of steps. But all of the logic is contained within the next step. So like if you watch, again, we have not gotten to the final definition, but if you just watch the video with the final definition of sensorality, you encompass, you encapsulate all of the logic of the previous steps. And so you don't miss anything logically. And that's why you can produce new knowledge today and you don't have to learn everything that happened yesterday or in history. So we cover the general form, our economic solution or result, and then also the result of morality being the literal linguistic basis and the actual empirical basis of humorality, which is humor. And so we talked about how values and humor are related last episode. Today we're just picking up right where we left off. So sensorality, we talked about the identity matrix, and sensorality is a word. So our current working definition right now is just sensorality is a word. Now let's just cut that to sensorality is word. Any word. So we've defined it in complete generality. But sensorality identifies itself. Remember, our previous working definition of sensorality was more specific. It was personality. So everyone knows what a personality is, the things that describe themselves. And again, speciality towards a human being, differentiation to be attractive. So again, just showing you the logical consistency of the previous definitions. Again, I don't review this stuff. I don't go back and watch it. It just keeps reiterating in my own head until it just produces more theorems, and then I write them down and form little videos for you guys. But sensorality identifies itself. I am me, I am Brad, I am 6 foot tall, I'm a fat piece of shit, I live at my parents' house, all of these great characteristics to attract a mate. But, right, we talked about the ship being dismembered piece by piece. When does it lose its functionality? Again, functionality is an indicative or created from form. Right, if you come across an object in the woods that you don't know, the first thing you're trying to do is what was this used for, to figure out what it is. But sensorality identifies itself. The pool table, my pen, cannot make any sort of statement, cannot transmit any information to say that it is aware of itself. So that's what sensorality is something that can identify itself, and it is a word. Senseless is selfless, right? So sensorality, we've already took a huge chunk off what sensorality with a C, or what sensorality in general could be. Anything that's represented by sensorality with a C is inanimate, and so anything that ends with a base word that has reference to sentience, your soul or your morals or your thinking or your thoughtless, anything that has some sort of implication to sentience and ends in less is what sensorality with a C is. We're trying to get the definition of sensorality with an S. But senseless is selfless, right? If something doesn't have a self, it can't sense anything. What is the relationship of finite and definite? Again, because we have, finite ends, definite also ends. Definite is just finite with de in front of it. So again, anytime you have a prefix or a suffix, you're extending that logical application. So very clear just from the word structure itself. but finite terminates. Terminality went over that a couple episodes ago. Definite, but again, just what context did these words come from? Finite, again, physically, most fundamentally, is the edge of the universe, but we already have a definable observable universe by all measurement. And definite. So again, what is the nuanced difference between finite and definite? We went through that logical sequence on the last episode or 2 episodes ago. But what syllability does is it preserves pronunciation. And I use the word preservation over conservation. Again, I don't have a solidified proof as to why. And when I do proofs, it's into complete generality. So there's a lot of things, again, are infinite set of things that can be proven or that are true that can't be proven come into play obviously come into play at this level as well. And so why do I use the word preservation over conservation? And what's the difference? If I conserve something, it's not lost. It's in a specific thinking of physics. If I conserve momentum or charge, it's not lost. If I preserve charge or momentum, it's... You see how preservation still kind of contains the concept of conservation, and conservation still kind of contains the ideas of preservations, but clearly they're 2 different words, so what is the exact application? That is, again, that's differentiating sensorality from sensorality, differentiating present from present, differentiating, all words have this dichotomistic function of 2, right? And so, the next one we're going to get to is discrete versus discrete. And that's when everybody already intuitively knows the definitions. Discrete, which we've talked about rigorously mathematically, independent systems represented by natural numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then discrete, like inconspicuous, like keep it on the down low. Like when I was fucking yo bitch, it was discrete, We weren't talking about our step functions there. But the point being is, what is the difference between conservation, or just breaking down and adding more specificity to these concepts that we say in spoken conversation all the time? Linguistically, we differentiate them, and that function applies to, I don't know if we can say definitively for all words, but I will say definitively, again, that's without proof. I'm being rigorous to my standard, not to anybody else's standard. They would just say it, and everyone would be like, oh yeah, dude, black energy, dark holes. But pronunciation is preserved by syllability. So now what we can do is we can look at words, and you can take any word, see is there a word, again, does it break down into another complete word? Again, you can do it to just complete words of A and I, and again, in the English language represented by the Roman alphabet, but I forego those. I even forego a lot of prepositions like on or with or at. Again, that's just instinctual. There's nothing you can rigorously, absolutely. The preservation will continue on to single syllables or single letters as well, or complete words that are represented by single syllables and single letters. But it's just extreme redundancy because you can do it to literally every word with a vowel. But the point being is, for example, a specific example. But I just have sensorality filters pronunciationality. So again, I have a bunch of I just keep using, right, when you're in a spelling bee, can you use it in a sentence? So I just keep using sensorality in a sentence until I get to its final definition. And so I skip a lot of those as well also, and just until I get to a meaningful functional definition or a change in the structure that we've already established. And so, right, we differentiated between pronunciation, which is the correct syllable articulation, and then on a given instance, like when I'm speaking right now, I'm enunciating words, and if I say it correctly, I'm pronouncing things correctly. So we made a differentiation there. But that's, again, so that's what we're doing, is differentiating between all of these different word pairs logic, and trying to find a form of a word that's a unique string, a unique sequence of words that gives us our definition. So after we introduce the dynamic limit, and then that syllability is preserved, if you can break down a word into another complete word, again, for basic insight, or for unless you're me, or again, because it's just not even insightful to really anybody, but to another insightful word, like humor to humorality to morality. I mean, that's insightful. But the dynamic limit connects and combines 2 minimalistic expressions with that preservation of syllability. So the best way to do is just an example. right? How about the word solid and the word arity? Solid, self-explanatory, everybody knows what that is. Arity, A-R-I-T-Y, the mathematical concept of dimensionality that was just like a fragment left over. But again, these aren't random examples either, by the way. So remember, I'm playing 69 level chess against you people who are just drooling on your shirts. But if you add solid and the word arity, two complete independent words by themselves, and just add them together without modifying the syllability whatsoever, the number of syllables, the letter that represent them, or the sound they make, right? Solid and arity, you get solidarity. And so, but wait a second. Solidarity. Solidarity. And so now you've produced, by taking two independent words that are discrete, you've chopped them into syllables, and you've put them together, or you've combined them two. Or this one, you haven't cut off any letters, you haven't added any letters. You just put solid and arity together. But what you've done is you've created another form of a word, right? Solidarity. Now look at that in its entirety. And again, if you're listening, these are on the screen. But solidarity produces another form of the word. In the pronunciation, right, you say solidarity. You carry that D sound into the next syllable. So now you get darity. You have solidarity. And so the S-O-L-I becomes a prefix. And then darity becomes a generalized complete form. What is darity? Again, I don't know, but that's the same as I'm taking this syllable that's preserved by pronunciation and this syllable over here that's preserved by pronunciation, bringing them together and showing you that so a word that you speak all of the time and it is insightful to a function, a physical process that you are intuitively aware of and you partake in every single day. And so that is what we are doing, but that shows the preservation of syllability in the dynamic limit connecting the pronunciation of two complete independent words into one complete independent word and producing another, again, that entropic step, that bit of disorder, that bit of openness where you can have new input and connect to something else. So now we take darity and we find something else that has that syllable, darity, those three syllables, and try to connect them into the 5 or into the 7 or into the 4 or whatever. And so solidarity is a very good example. Do we want anything there? Again, trying to figure out the final definition. For sensorality, we can just extend using our working definition of word. You have word, you have wordle, you have wordality. Now here's the thing, right? So what did I just say about pronunciation preservation? It will be the same thing, right? So I just said wordle. Have you guys ever played the New York Times game called Wordle? Let's just think of the gameplay of that. I actually have never played the game. I kind of know of it, like the gameplay, but I haven't actually played it. The other thing is you have 5 elemental spaces, and you try to guess a word. And then it shows you, if you've got the correct letter in the word, or if you have no correct letters, or if you have the correct letter in the word in the right space. And so you try to guess that, but you're doing syllability when you do that. But on top of that, the iteration of syllables is showing you, right, directly word, wordle, wordality, simply by putting an AL at the end of word, which is the form of wordality, which is just the general form of word. And so we directly proved the emergence of a viral phenomenon pop culture game that has emerged in the past 10 years. And we just did that now with the syllability. So, the amount of results we're producing at this point is tremendous. But that is our definition of wordality. That was kind of a fun little aside.